I always say, oh, here comes one of our favorites. And then people say, well, you say that about most of your guests. And, the no jive policy is always in effect. He is one of my favorite guys. By the way, that's what we do here on the show. We get people who I like to kibitz with. Now, we like to introduce new people. I like to get to know new people, but I'm an old curmudgeon. So I lean on the bona fide fellas and women who we know are going to deliver for you. This is one of those people, you know him from NFL Network, NFL.com, getting you right for the draft. He's already deep into it, preparing all the profiles on the players you're going to get to be familiar with. Come springtime, he's also on the air in Houston on the radio waves. Good times down there in Houston, Texas. If you're a sports fan, he also has roots to Pittsburgh, PA. We like that. It's Lance Zierlein. What's happening, Pally? How you been?
How we doing, Dave?
You have not as good as you, yet? I don't think.
Well, you have a quarterback yet? I mean, every week it seems like Steeler fans either they do have one or they don't have one. It kind of changes from week to week.
I'm anxious to have that conversation, but listen, okay. I like to go global. I'm not just here.
You're not just a regional guy. I know.
Not just it's I could service my needs and my needs alone, but that's not my way. And there are people out there will tell you as much, but that's a conversation for another time. By the way, with where Lance is concerned, he is he's not just a sports guy, not just a football guy. If you're headed to Houston, make sure you hit him up on social media for the best food tips when you're down there. It's one of the great food cities in America, nay, the world. And he's plugged in there. I have a good question for you, as a matter of fact, on food at the end here. But by the way, James Harden, you're banned from hitting up Lance Zierlein. You've had more than enough food and stay out of Houston, right? We don't want him down there playing for the Rockets.
We're done with James Harden.
Okay, I figured.
We're done with James Harden.
Okay, next question with Houston is, are the Texans going to the playoffs? It feels to me like DeMeco, well, it doesn't feel, it plainly is. DeMeco has them ahead of schedule. Or that's, I feel like the national perception. But I imagine if you're in Houston and have been for the last decade, 15 years, that you kind of feel like George Clooney when he broke big on ER and most of the nation was kind of like, boy, overnight success. Who's this guy? And George Clooney was like, I've been here for a long time, grinding away.
Going through to life. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. See, look who knows his stuff. Yeah. Okay. Right. We had exactly right. George, just as George Clooney had got a little bit of shine on Facts of Life and all that with he dated Tootie. Is that right? I don't
no, I think he was with Joe.
Oh, he was with Joe.
Really? Wasn't he?
Oh, okay. Listen.
Was it Tootie? I don't know, but
either way. So okay, he had his moments, much like the Houston Texans did.
He disrupted the dorm, so to speak.
That's right. Yeah, he's a ne'er-do-well. Tomcatting around the fancy school dorms. Now listen. So Clooney, so he had that just like the Houston Texans, couple playoff appearances, no big noise though. And now it feels like, ooh, look who's arrived. It's the Houston Texans / George Clooney. No overnight success. Let's remember the whole Deshaun Watson debacle, how that all went down, the changing head coaches. It's a recurring point, though, in the age of free agency. And, obviously you focus in on the draft. But does this prove once again my ongoing point that a bad draft pick, even high in the first round, or a bad personnel move, or even a bad move in terms of head coaching, doesn't have to spoil the next decade of an NFL franchise? No, you can overcome these things pretty easily, right? Not very easily, but
you can. But you gotta cut that cancer out quick. You can't.
Right.
You can't chase bad money with good, as the saying goes. And I think one of the problems is the Texans let the Bill O'Brien thing go too long. They gave him too much power as a general manager. They got rid of the other general manager, kind of made a power play, Bill O'Brien and Jack Easterby. And I think it really set the Texans back quite a bit. They gutted the roster. They gutted their draft picks. They didn't know what they were doing. And so it really did set the Texans back several years. And even now, when you say they're the George Clooney, just coming on the scene, I think they're more like Ralph Macchio when he came to town in Karate Kid. And, Elizabeth Shue was intrigued, but she wasn't all the way in. And he still had to get past Cobra Kai. I'm not sure there's a Cobra Kai in the AFC South necessarily. Maybe Jacksonville, but they don't feel like it. Houston beat up Jacksonville in Jacksonville this year. The Colts aren't ready. And I guess the Titans are the Titans. No one respects them. No one wants to watch them play. Seemingly, they feel like the boring team. But I think because of the division they're in, yes, they could be a wild card team. However, even with that said, even when you throw those caveats in there, it's a much more competitive team than what we've seen in the past. And it's because it looks like they got the quarterback right. They hired the right play caller in Bobby Slowick. But most importantly, this is a team without direction at the top from ownership standpoint, and that's probably still the case. But they hired DeMeco Ryans, and he has been he's been everything. I've never seen a coach in all my years of following sports. My dad was a coach for years and years. I don't think in following basketball, baseball, football, Dave, that I can come up with one coach that I've seen this even keel, maybe Tony Dungy, this even keel, this consistent, this uplifting when players are around them. They want to play for them. And just watching how hard they play defensively on every snap just goes to show you that they really want to play for DeMeco. But I think they maybe are starting to feel like there's a brotherhood around them. Now, they're still, they have to have more pieces. They're not ready yet. But getting the right head coach matters a lot. I mean, it matters a lot. If you miss on your head coach, it can set you back a few years. But if you miss on your head coach and your general manager, and your draft picks, that's one of those things that can leave you twisting like the Cleveland Browns for years and years and years. So it can turn into a death spiral for some organizations. We have seen that happen before.
Oh man, so many different directions. I'd like to take the various remarks you made within that speech. First of all, it's funny because you would think old school football guy, like certainly, okay, if the head coach is even keeled, then your QB's got to be a fiery sort. It feels like there's a double down on real placid, kind of icy cool with CJ Stroud. Zero emotion. He does not cut the figure of, the fiery, Marino, I guess is the template in my brain for what I'm talking about with that kind of a guy, or Aaron Rodgers or anybody else, demanding of his players, empirically to us watching on TV, even like, whoa, man, that guy's getting into the wide receiver. It seems like CJ Stroud is a cool breeze through and through. I do think I do think Trevor Lawrence, maybe not in comportment, but in look and hair and all of that, could be Johnny from Cobra Kai. So maybe Will Anderson. I'm not encouraging any dirty play, but maybe sweep the leg and you do have a chance. I really think there's a chance that the Texans can get in here, and there is an opportunity even as a wild card. It does matter when you have a head-to-head wins already in your resume against a team like Pittsburgh, who you're presumably going to be trying to fight it out with when it comes down to it. So, I mean, it's way too early to do this. I think people did this in 2020 and 2016 with the first round QBs and like, oh, we got the right one. And then it turned out like, maybe it didn't. Let's see a little bit more from both these guys. But I can't imagine there's anyone in Houston, Texas right now who says like, I still would rather have Bryce Young. Is there?
No, not right now. It's too hard to say that. I mean, and I don't think,
well, where are you as a scout though? But I mean, as somebody using your objective eyes, not rooting for the local team, but do you think that that the Texans, because remember, much was made of them scoring that touchdown at the end of the regular season that gave away essentially Bryce Young. Was that the greatest gift that the Houston, Texas organization ever got?
Yeah. And a lot of people were really upset about it. Then it caused them to make trades, it caused them to make trades on draft day that ended up costing more draft picks. And there was a lot of pressure. There still is a lot of pressure on Will Anderson, but more importantly, the quarterback, CJ Stroud. But no, I think right now, I have a higher grade on Bryce Young, but situations matter. And the offense matters. I think most quarterbacks would be able to play some of their best football, relatively speaking, in this style of offense. We've seen it play out with, Shanahan. First it was Mike Shanahan, but then it's a more developed scheme under Kyle Shanahan, the son, than it was the father. And I think, it's really something that really benefits quarterbacks. With that said, CJ Stroud has been better in certain elements than I anticipated, Dave. He's learning the offense more quickly. He is making very smart plays out there. He's not doing some of the things I saw in college, which is staring down wide receivers. He's gotten better at that. And then I've been really impressed with his maturity as a leader. Now, the thing they say about NFL is in really professional sports, you have to always ask yourself what a player will do with more money in his pocket, more time on his hands, and more access. And so, maintaining making the main thing, keeping his focus on being a great quarterback. I think he kind of got away from Deshaun Watson while he was here in Houston. I
heard about that.
Yeah. And David Mulgett is the same agent for Deshaun and he's the same one for CJ Stroud. There's a chance CJ Stroud saw all that stuff with Deshaun, and maybe that's had a positive impact on him, recognizing what not to do. But right now, Stroud is playing better football than I expected on the field from an X's and O's standpoint. I always knew he was wildly accurate. Wildly accurate. That's kind of a
oxymoron, right?
But he was, he was extraordinarily accurate. But I didn't know if he would be ready from a maturity standpoint and leadership standpoint at this stage. But right now, I've been really impressed. Bryce Young doesn't have much of a chance right now with Carolina. It's going to take a while, but he's starting to come along a little bit. Certainly has found he's clicking with Adam Thielen. But I think, I'm a big believer in waiting about 3 years on a quarterback. You don't go
3 years.
Yeah, if you were all in on, Mac Jones, it looked good 2 years ago, but right now it's like, I don't know. Quarterbacks take time to develop, and sometimes even if you get off to a good start, sometimes defenses figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are, and they start to really play you differently. So I like to wait about 3 years to start to make decisions on players. I think some of the best quarterbacks step into bad situations, and so they're not they don't have an ideal opportunity to succeed. So give them 3 years, because it gives the team builders around them a chance to put pieces in place that will help. So nobody in Houston's pining for Bryce Young right now. I can promise you that.
Well, I'll tell you, I've had great conversations with you and Daniel Jeremiah about exactly how you're trying to evaluate the quarterback in year 1 to year 3, and situation and quality of the fellows around him and the coaching they're getting and all that. But one that, I kind of knew this, but the old cliche about the backup QB is the most popular guy in any town. And, the idea of NFL defenses will figure out what you want to do is the ebb and flow of how it goes with these guys. Right. And so so 3 years, I never know where it's like, okay, it's settled hash. He's good. Or like settled hash, like, he's limited. I don't know what that yardstick is. 10 games, 15 games, 3 seasons.
It's different with different players.
But they will my point is, I'm going to be a big, this is Dave being a jerk to everybody who loves to cheer for Gardner Minshew, and he's delightful. But he's a backup QB because NFL teams can see what he's trying to do eventually with enough evidence. Give 1 game, 3 games, whatever. It's like, oh, that's what he's trying to do in this system. We take that away, and he is not capable of answering that, right?
Right. Well, and there is something that is to be said for taking care of the football. I mean, if you can't take care of the football and you don't play consistently from game to game, then you're a backup. You have a chance to win games. How would we do it on a 3-game stretch? He's a good 3-game stretch quarterback. You give your team a chance to win maybe 2 out of 3 with a guy like Gardner Minshew. He's a good backup quarterback. But like you said, Dave, it's an evolving game of chess where if you do not, it's almost really more like boxing, where a lot of times boxers, will adjust. You go in with a plan, and if somebody scouted you and really on tape know what you want to do and they want to attack you a certain way, you're going to get beat over 12 rounds unless you find ways to, on the fly, make adjustments to what they're doing and put them on their heels. And so it's constantly a counterpunching. It's a defensive. You have to be on the defensive, and then you got to be able to counterpunch from a schematic standpoint. And that goes for the quarterback too. Not only are they going to take away what you like to do once they scout you, but then you have to be able to recognize what they're doing and then get to something else. And I think that that's what makes starting quarterbacks. That's the difference between a starting quarterback and a backup. But you look at Tyson Badgett yesterday for the Chicago Bears. I mean, he was terrible the game before. I thought he was really deer in the headlights. Yesterday, he got exited the pocket when there was trouble. He wasn't just standing there. He did a really good job of sticking with the game plan, which is quick completions. He got rid of it. The internal clock was good. You know, there's such a difference between being ready with practice the whole week as a starter and being thrown into a game. He looked night and day. With that said, every game he plays, teams are going to say, okay, they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this. The analytics and the study are just, it's too strong now where they get tendencies very, very quickly and that are provided to them through data. And they are going to start attacking the tendencies very quickly. So at some point, they're going to have to start going over the top because everyone's going to start crowding the short stuff with Chicago. So how does Badgett respond? Well, if he responds well, they may win some more games. If he doesn't, that's just part of being a young quarterback. Like, you can't judge him based on anything. But I guarantee you, he wins another one, Bears fans are going to say, why are we wasting our time with Justin Fields? And I don't know that the Justin Fields story is completely written. Chicago is, I'm not sure. You know, I fall on the, I'm a little more pessimistic about being able to win at a high level with Justin Fields, quite frankly, watching him. But I also think he is more talented than Badgett. Now, that doesn't mean you're a better quarterback in the NFL, but I do think that, to your point, the backup quarterback, man, you come in there and win some games. I mean, fans are ready to get rid of the other guy quickly. They're getting ready to
sure. I think the specimen nature of Justin Fields makes it, and he did it in 2022, causing outsized optimism going into this season, but it's just not something that carries over that you can rely upon. It is those splash plays. It's like, I can cover up a lot of flaws on this bum roster by just making a 68-yard, superhero run here. But that doesn't lead to week, season-to-season success for a pro football.
No, it's fool's gold, really. I mean,
yeah, but it's fun to watch, and you can see why people get really excited. And then you start to inject some fantasy kind of angle to it, and then people really get over their skis about it. Okay. Quick question, because I have fun stuff I want to talk to you about, but for real, since you were so close to the Texans, Deshaun Watson, and now he's up there in Cleveland, as you may have heard. I mean, first of all, it goes without saying, Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam and Kevin Stefanski and everyone else, if they had a wish to go back in time to that moment, they would just undo signing Deshaun Watson, right? That goes without saying, right?
And they came in, I mean, Deshaun was going to be an Atlanta Falcon. And I heard that from someone close to Deshaun, and they had champagne out and were getting ready to celebrate. And Cleveland came in at the last second, really bid against themselves. Just a complete panic move. and it was a complete panic move. And they bid against themselves, and they gave Watson a deal that no one thought they would give. And now, Texans fans are watching, interestingly. I don't think they're real happy with, you don't want the Colts to win because they're in your division, but you'd rather the Browns lose because you get a better draft pick this year. You get the Browns draft pick as part of that Deshaun Watson trade. So you already traded your pick to Arizona in that trade for
win-win. That was the beauty of the Texans on the bye week.
You either had a division team lose or you had Deshaun Watson pick get a little bit better. So PJ Walker, PJ Walker, Tyrod Taylor, two guys who get wins as backups. I'm waiting for fans, and they're disgruntled with Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. They're disgruntled with Daniel Jones in New York. I'm waiting for fans to really start making the case that these two guys are better, or they're better off. They're clearly not.
It's weird, but the mirage, you can understand it because in a short sample size, like, look, our team's doing better with the lesser talent. It is weird math. I guess if the Browns won a Super Bowl and Deshaun Watson were under center, you would say, well, there's no way you define this as a bust. But I just feel like from just, the human reaction to it obviously wasn't good. And the team is good. And then it makes you think, I love the what if it, Lance. And I can't help but do the what if. Like, what if they would have just stuck with Bake? They would have been fine. They would not be worse. I just don't think they'd be worse off. Think of how deep how much deeper that already deep roster would have been.
Okay. I think they should have gotten into the quarterback. They should have gotten into the quarterback business instead of chasing Deshaun Watson. If you want to go in a different direction, everyone's really afraid to, unless they've got a top 2 or 3 pick, they're afraid to go after quarterbacks. But we saw Jalen Hurts. You can find some quarterbacks who can perform at a higher level without being the first pick. It's not easy, but it's worse. You'd be better off trying to go find a first round pick to give somebody $238 million guaranteed and, harsh your own salary cap to where you can't even make positive, like it's a boat anchor in more ways than one. Not only the contract, but what you can do to build your team. It's really, really harsh. And you didn't exactly, it wasn't exactly for part of your fan base, they were pretty offended that you made that pickup too. So yeah, I think the Browns would 100% across the board be rid of that contract if they could. I'm sure it wouldn't shock me if they tried to shop Deshaun Watson in the offseason, but I don't think you'll find any.
Yeah, look at the hit that is waiting for 2024. Yeah. This is as good as it's getting, Cleveland Browns fans. It's getting worse next year. Okay, draft expert. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ask you this, but everybody loves to do the Myles Garrett or TJ Watt or question. And the answer is it's the golden age of edge rushers. There's never been such a preponderance of dominators on the edge to torment QBs. If you had the first overall pick and the only position you could draft was edge rusher, who would you take out of this golden era of edge rushers? Nick Bosa counts in that too. That's not a crazy answer, obviously.
Yeah, I think I might take Nick Bosa.
No, you wouldn't. And you know why? You know why you stink? Because Nick.
You gonna say TJ? Are you gonna say TJ Watt?
Let me tell you why. Because TJ Watt did something on Sunday that Myles Garrett and Nick Bosa could only dream of. Dropping in coverage, reading the route, baiting a Hall of Fame QB into throwing that ball and sliding in and picking it off. Good luck doing that, Myles Garrett. Right?
He looked really, really good. I'll give it to him. He looked really, really good. And this is how you know that I am very objective, Dave. I'm a very objective, fair person, is because I am blocked by Nick Bosa on Twitter. I don't know why. He must not like my scouting report or something. I don't follow him.
Perfect, Antonio Bryan, and Josina Anderson. I don't know. Antonio Brown, I should say, and Josina Anderson. Those are the biggest people I'm aware of that have blocked me. I don't know why Josina Anderson did.
I was blocked by Ben Roethlisberger's account, but apparently everybody was at one point. Nick Bosa, I guess, like I said, I don't even follow athletes really, so I guess he was mad at something I wrote in the scouting report. I guess where I said he was going to be a Pro Bowler. Made him upset. I don't know what it is. I don't really care, but
this is a great list. Eddie Spaghetti, make a footnote. We have to ask everybody who's the biggest person that they're blocked by. I like this.
Yeah, I don't get blocked by a lot of people, but that one was pretty interesting. I mean, I've had players come after me for my scouting reports because they don't think they have any weaknesses. I shouldn't even have a weakness section in my scouting reports. It irritates them so bad. I was higher on than anybody on the planet on DK Metcalf. Had him as the 7th best player in the draft. He was drafted last pick of the second round, and he keeps my weaknesses section in his bulletin board material and his cubby. He doesn't show where I said he was an elite prospect and throw away your considerations of whether or not he can run all the routes. This is a guy with rare tools and traits. So. Whatever it takes to get bulletin board material, that's
sure. Get your bulletin board material, but I do have to say, Micah Parsons, there are bigger problems in the world, but on the other hand, the newfangled thing of athletes taking it to the next level with you're not allowed to criticize me. What do you think you're doing? You can't criticize.
Yeah, it's out of control.
Hey, Daniel Day-Lewis, you decided to be an A-list actor. This is part of it, is getting some reviews of your work. This is how it goes. Everything you make is not.
Is Daniel Day-Lewis, was he not happy when people would review him?
He doesn't he doesn't like he's above. He doesn't like doing the press tour to promote his movies. Well, then don't make big movies. Then don't get paid $10 million a picture, man. Go make some little art house movies.
Don't learn to.
You don't have to go out and promote. That's it.
Yeah.
If you're about the craft. Same goes for you, Micah Parsons. There's some flag football games, I'm sure, in the neighborhood. If you don't want anybody watching and reacting.
No, nobody likes to be criticized, but I think some of these guys are really taking it too far where they, what they consider criticism is pretty minor stuff.
It's
But
crazy. I don't know where they got the sense that that is the standard. Like, whoa. You said that wasn't a good play by me? How dare you? That's out of bounds. Crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. LZ, QB wizard, a real QB guru, a whisperer too. You know what? It's one of my best pigskin based compliments I can give, because
it is.
You're going to laugh. Some of you people laugh at me. Much as I say I could lead, football players scoff at the notion that cagey Dameshek with sneaky athleticism, not much foot speed to speak of, but I make up for it with the cunning of a mongoose. If you gave me the league's best offensive line, the league's best running back, and the league's best pass catcher, I could lead from my own 25 a point scoring drive. That's what I say. And because I do a lot of handing off until it was time not to hand off. And then a little play action Dameshek to that aforementioned receiver. I got you up the sideline. Field goal at least. Now, people like you scoff when I decree myself a QB whisperer. Near the top of the rankings, in fact. Oh, what do you know? I know enough. You know what I know? I know what these two eyes tell me. And I hit on quarterbacks in college that are going to be good pros and ones that aren't going to be good pros at a pretty high rate. Spaghetti would verify that. But I have this question for you.
What did you think about Haskins when he came out?
Boy, that's a great question. You know, it's funny. It's not because of the Ohio State thing, but I did think some of the same things that plagued Haskins early would be an issue for Stroud. I think people thought I just thought like he was stiff in the pocket, and that's not going to translate. You have to be nimble. You don't have to be a runner. You don't have to bail the pocket with speed, but you do have to at least be able to slide in the pocket and manipulate the angles that the defenders are trying to get at you on. And I just didn't see that from. I was at least a concern with Stroud. If he's just going to stand there and lock in on a receiver and he's going to be a sitting target, he's going to got a lot more in the NFL. So that's kind of my back. As I recall, when I'm thinking with Haskins, I was surprised when they went dimes, did the Giants, but that I think ended up being the wiser of the two moves. But okay, we're talking about drafting QBs, first round and everything else. It's kind of like the 85 Bears reference that people keep making. Even I don't know if that is the single best defense of all time. I don't think it probably is, or at least there have been more recent examples that we should pivot to. Still, people say the 83 draft class is the greatest QB class of all time. Just as I said about the 85 Bears. Do we need to modify that? Should it be the 04 QB class? Or how about this one? The 2020 QB class. What do we think about this? Of course, for newbies, if you don't pay attention, if you don't know your history enough to know that the 83 draft class included John Elway and Dan Marino and Jim Kelly. And you know what? Who deserves a shout out too? Ken O'Brien. Those are four good. That's right. That's four.
He was good quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah, he should have had Marino. They would have been better with Marino, but Ken O'Brien wasn't a bum. Then, of course, goes out saying Roethlisberger, Eli, Rivers in 04, and really 18 was supposed to be it. And, Lamar and Josh Allen might add up to something, but that's only two. 2020, though, Burrow, Tua, Herbert, and Jalen Hurts early in the second round. How say you? Rank those for me. Win, play, show, the greatest QB classes of all time. And you're going to have to do some forward thinking here and assume where Tua, Herbert, Jalen, and Burrow are going to land collectively in terms of Lombardis and otherwise. But go ahead.
Sure, I'm looking at, and listen, you had Matt Schaub, who was a decent quarterback in 2004. He started for a little while, but really that headliner is going to be, you got Manning, Rivers, and Roethlisberger, as you mentioned. Those are the big three. Those are three really, really good ones. In 05, you had Aaron Rodgers, of course, Hall of Famer. But other than that, you had Alex Smith, who, had his
turned it around.
There's nothing else that really stands out in that one. Boy, then it was a little bit of struggle. Flacco and Matt Ryan were okay at times, but it never, I'm kind of with you on that one. 2000.
They're not making the winner stand. That's all. They're not getting in the top three.
No. I'm going through these as
There's
we
like
as
71. I mean, if you
still,
get in the Wayback Machine, you can
well,
summon
now
some
let me
deep.
ask you about this one. Andrew Luck, of course, career was cut short. Robert Griffin career was cut short. Tannehill's still around. You have Russell Wilson
And
still
you have
around.
Russ as well, right?
Russell Wilson, for the better part of his, people are changing the narrative of Russell Wilson. The fact is, Russell Wilson was an elite quarterback at one point. He was deserved to be in the conversation with the best quarterbacks in the league. He made explosive plays with his arm, with his feet. He won at a high level. Russell Wilson never got as much attention as I think he deserved for being one of the very best. Now, he's not there now, but he was. You got
okay, let me ask you this. What happened?
Kirk Cousins in that draft too.
Oh, right. He's that right. Or the afterthought, an interesting draft ploy. The team that goes second overall with RG3 or third overall, wherever he went there out of Baylor. But then they double down on the Michigan State kid with Kirk Cousins is super fascinating. That's your draft strategy, is to get 2, and it ends up being the savvy move because Cousins takes him to the playoffs in year 3 after RG3 is all messed up with the knee and all of that. So a savvy play there. Okay. Win, play, show it for me now. That's a good one. That's a good one. I don't think
I will. Well,
others,
because it depends on what you say with Andrew Luck. Because if you give Andrew Luck all the credit that he could get for being who he was while he was that player, you could sit there and make an argument that from a bronze standpoint, maybe we give it to the Luck, Russell Wilson, Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins draft. Right, of 2012.
No, we don't give it that.
No.
You're trying to be hip. You're trying to be a hipster.
Okay, a bronze, a third place finish.
Ahead of whom? Okay, take the class out that it's replacing.
Are we going to leave 13? And we're leaving 13 in, right?
Okay, name them for me. Give them to me.
Well, so the one that you just mentioned was the 2020 class with Burrow, Tua, Justin Herbert. I mean, and Jalen Hurts. I know it's recency bias, but those are high level. Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl appearance. Justin Herbert, we'll see what happens. Tua looks like he's a good player. Just Joe Burrow, Super Bowl appearance. Those are really good players in that one. 21, as you mentioned, is kind of a bust. Nothing's going to happen from 22. 23 will be interesting. So I would say,
whoa. I didn't like what you said about 2022 there. That was a little cavalier, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
somebody who beat the Cavaliers on more than one occasion, Kenny Pickett.
Pickett and Ritter, is this who you're or do you really like Bailey Zappi?
I'm not concerning myself.
Skylar Thompson that you like, or
just one. Just the one in the number 8. The black and gold 8's the only one I'm concerned with right now. Kenneth Pickett. Or as he turns into magically every fourth quarter, he turns into Kenny Pickett. And I don't know what goes on here. He is, it's his superhero thing. I'm not Lawrence Taylor. I'm LT in game time. Yeah. Only in the fourth quarter. He is the opposite of Clayton Kershaw, who, by the way, I don't know if you know, he went to high school with Matthew Stafford, and I have a thought on Matthew Stafford in a second here, but from that game in Los Angeles, I mean, it's remarkable because, as I always say, we perceive Clutch to be a guy who takes care of business in the big spot, which isn't to say that he's doing outsized things. He's performing at his consistent level, coming through when it's hot. That's hard to do. Kenny Pickett is doing something much rarer. Clayton Kershaw, his performance, as it does for a lot of guys in the big spot against better competition, drops off. Kenny Pickett, when it gets hottest, what gives? What flip is switched here, and how do you turn that into from one quarter into 4 quarters?
Well, that's just going to have to be Kenny learning to manage games. I mean, I think it's interesting. I think learning to do what CJ Stroud has already done, which is figure out, hey, I'm just going to, I want to take care of the football. I want to make smart moves, smart plays, and I want to put us in position to get down the field. I think Kenny still has, I don't want to call it hero ball, but I think he still has that feeling where he's got some of that gunslinger that you can see in him. I think sometimes he gets a little nervous inside the pocket. There's no doubt that
definitely
he seems to focus his play in the fourth quarter. Like, he has the ability to start to hyper focus a little bit. Now look, that catch and run, it was a bad play by the Rams, bad play by the cornerback when Deontay Johnson took off He tried to undercut it. Deontay caught it, made a nice run, had the big play. I felt like the game completely changed on that play. It felt like all the momentum, and it was crazy how loud that stadium was for the Steelers. The Steelers travel as good as anybody. I mean, it goes Steelers, Patriots, Cowboys, and that's probably the big three when it comes.
I go
Packers
the
fans
ones
pretty
I've
good.
experienced, and I feel like I've experienced pretty much all of them in most regions of football America. I think it goes Pittsburgh and Cowboys.
Yeah.
But the Steelers are visually compelling. They're striking because you see the gold towels everywhere. And so those really stand out. It's cheese ball or not, we latch on to things in our lives. We like to be a part of something. It's special to be, the mix of walking by tens of thousands of people wearing the uniform, some variation of black and gold and whatever team you root for, but walking around a place 3,000 miles away from the center of where that team plays and just strangers connecting with you. Okay, it's a thin connection, but nevertheless, it's nice in this world. People walking by like, yo, here we go. And then I don't want to call out frauds because it's nice. They like a nice team. It's good. But when they tell on themselves, like, I don't actually know when they're doing the let's go Steelers, let's go. It's like, no. It's here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Please learn. I want to pull people aside and counsel them. It's like, it's not Tomlin, it's Tomlin. But anyhow, yeah.
Here's your quarterbacks. I've looked through this.
It's so nice to bring my boy there with me when my old man took me to see the Steelers. So it's just, football's great. Call me a cheese ball.
It was a great place. When my dad coached there, it was unbelievable going to Heinz Field for the first time and experiencing Steeler fans. It was really cool.
It's so neat. Yeah, it's so nice. Okay, give me your rankings here. Show, best QB classes of all time, and there is. We're going to put it into the time capsule and dig it up in 20 years. These are the final answers, even though we're treating Tua and Burrow and company a little unfairly. But go ahead.
So I'm going to 83 class number 2. As you mentioned, Elway, Kelly, and Danny Marino. Those are 3 Hall of Famers. Ken O'Brien was, Tony Eason went to a Super Bowl at least. Ken O'Brien was a solid quarterback. The rest of them were just okay. Gary Kubiak was a better coach than the backup quarterback, but not much else going on in that class. I am going to say third place is what I mentioned. I'm going to go with 2011 with Andrew Luck. 2012, Andrew Luck, Ryan Tannehill, Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins. I think Russell Wilson will be a Hall of Famer. I don't know what's going to happen with Andrew Luck. I personally don't think he should be. I'm sorry you got hurt, but I don't know. I think he might be. People will project him, but I don't think he should be. It's just,
of course, the idea, it's so weird. This is a recurring talking point since his retirement. Some guys get a pass on things that other guys would be destroyed for. Imagine any number of QBs I could cite for you quitting 2 weeks before the season. Like, sorry, I can't go. I can't go. Yeah. Like, what? And it's like, hey, don't you badmouth him. Look at what he gave to football. Like, a lot of guys gave a lot to football. Like, it would not excuse him walking away.
Put your team in a huge pinch. Huge pinch. It's interesting. 16 had Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Dak Prescott. At one point, you would have said, whoa.
I'm not going to say that at this point, though, Zierlein. That's not at this point.
Not at this point. So I'll leave him out of that. You do have Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes in 2017, but it's not deep after that. So I'll go ahead and I'm with you. I think 2020, and I think this is what you might be saying. I think 2020 is going to be known. And I went way back into the 80s while you were talking, like, wow, what bad draft classes left and right.
There are. Yeah. The idea that is a 21st century thing. And I think so much of the conversation about the perennial obsession about like, who's in the draft this year? Who can we get? Who can we look to in the future to right or wrong is based around 21st century football and how many QBs are in the pipeline from high school on, Manning camp, pro style offenses in high school or at least college and all that. Go back and look through the Kelly Stofers and Gail Gilberts, who were drafted in the first round to try and be saviors. They were
what
nowhere
happens
close
quick
to being.
too, right? It happens quick. I mean, you went to 18, you said, okay, Baker, Darnold, Josh Allen. And Allen was considered drafted early by a lot of people.
Yeah, right.
Josh Rosen, then you had Lamar Jackson. There's some people who really like Mason Rudolph. Kyle Lauletta was, I want to say, I think he was drafted by the Giants, but I think the Patriots traded for him.
Yeah, there was some buzz there. Remember that?
Yeah, there was buzz there. I thought it was unwarranted, but Mason Rudolph has just turned into a pure backup. Rosen was a huge...
I think he's a guy who could come in and win you 2 or 4 games. Like if you
so?
put him in for a month, I think he would be all right. I think he's one of those guys.
But in general, what a disappointing draft that has been. 19 with Drew Lock, Dwayne Haskins, Daniel Jones, and Kyler Murray. That simply hasn't panned out. But in 2020, the only thing you can really complain about is Jordan Love, who was a late first rounder, who hasn't really come through. But 4 of the first 5 picks you're talking about Pro Bowl caliber quarterbacks. It's very hard to find that in any draft class over the last 40 years.
It's wild. Really, how about 3 of the 4 with Richardson and then like we talked about Stroud and Bryce Young?
That's got a chance. I'm not real hopeful for Will Levis, and I kind of doubted on Hendon Hooker, and I don't really see anyone else in that class. But Young, Stroud, and Richardson, they do have a lot of talent. If Young can stay healthy, and if Richardson can get healthy and stay healthy, that's an interesting one. This one's deep. We'll probably get to this draft class. I know you're gonna send me in that direction anyway. I'll take you there right now.
Oh, but no. Let's get final answers though. So you went 83. You went 83-2, and you went 2021.
And then I'm gonna take the 2012 and I'm gonna put them in there because I'm gonna give Andrew Luck the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna show some respect to Kirk Cousins, and I think Russell Wilson is a future Hall of Famer. So I'll do that.
You still are staying by Russ. I went down that road too. And the guy now who is having the Hall of Fame career, who is the same age, weirdly, who feels like he should be 40 something, is Matthew Stafford. Although the Matthew Stafford experience includes that pick. Ultimately, Kenny Pickett outplayed Matthew Stafford on some level because he threw the game-swinging pick, did Matthew Stafford, to start the second half, as dynamite as he was. But, man, Puka Nacua, where that cat came from, I don't know. But
I missed on him, man. He is really looking.
Okay, 2 more questions, and then you're free to do with the rest of your life what you will, and I'll stop bugging you. Okay. 2 questions. 1, as you're going through these profiles, I always say, I get it. You have to assess if he's a bad guy deep down or a great guy deep down and all that kind of stuff in the process of interviewing him and meeting him and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, watch him play in college. He's playing against his peer group. How's he look compared to everybody else? Caleb Williams would have appeared to be, as people keep saying, can't miss. But the last 2 weeks, how much does a fortnight destroy a prospect like Caleb Williams? Is he still guaranteed the best quarterback in this class? And what's further, to join that group of Elway, Andrew Luck, Trevor Lawrence, Peyton Manning, this guy's definitely going to be a great NFL player.
Well, I'll give you some insight into my process. I typically on quarterbacks will wait until I get as many games as possible. I prefer to have the entire season because what I do is to keep me from having that confirmation bias of one game, because I did watch a Notre Dame game and it wasn't good, but I prefer to be able to watch it. Like if you had a bad game, it's washed away maybe by the next game. So I will watch, when I do Caleb Williams, I'm going to watch, it starts like this. I start with his interceptions. Then I go to his touchdowns. Then I go to, it depends on the quarterback, but I will go to his deep ball accuracy. Right. So I line up all the deep balls. I watch the deep balls. Then I'll look at him how he is a deep ball, but especially intermediate throws. I want to see, because those are pro throws. I want to see what you look like in intermediate throws. So I'll pull up the heat map and I'll look at him sideline throws, intermediate throws. I'll look at the 2 inner throws between the numbers and the hash, and then between the hashes, all 5 sections. So I'll watch that. Then I get to individual games where I want to see how he performs against certain games. So I'll go watch that Notre Dame game, but I'm going to watch him in maybe a couple bad ones and a couple good ones where I'm watching. A lot of times I'll watch almost every throw, but I like to to fine tune it down. I want to see what he's doing in the red zone. I want to see what he's doing in the fourth quarter, and so it takes a while, but I feel like I get the most true vision of who that quarterback is, as opposed to watching games during the year, because then we have confirmation bias and we get a negative filter that can cloud the way that we see future games. And so I never went into this saying that Caleb Williams is some, unbelievable next level prospect. I mean, he may be, but when I watched him throw to Jordan Addison last year, I didn't love what I saw. I thought Caleb looked good, but not like he was a generational talent. Then I talked to somebody with a personnel director with an NFL team just 2 weeks ago, and he said, yeah, Caleb is the real deal. We were talking. Now, that's not going to change my own personal opinion once I watch him. If I think he is, then I'll write that he is. But right now, I need to watch the tape to really get a feel for it. But there were some things in the Notre Dame game that I didn't love. And so I feel like this class, and looking at and watching these guys, it's a very deep class. And I think probably this year more than any year since 2000, ironically, since 2000, 21, where we had all the quarterbacks that everyone thought was going to be this incredible class.
Yep.
It hasn't really panned out. This is probably the deepest class since then, with Riley Leonard, Quinn Ewers, Drake May, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, who I'm having to rework my bias against what I saw when he was at Auburn. You got to kind of throw that out. He's a different quarterback now. Michael Penix from Indiana to Washington, different quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels from Arizona State. I actually like Jaden Daniels at Arizona State, and I still like him at LSU. But he's listed at 210. I mean, I'm just hoping he's 180. He looks so thin. I'm really curious what he stacks up, what his size is going to be. Joe Milton and Jordan Travis, Devin Leary from Kentucky, Sam Hartman from Notre Dame. It's an unbelievable.
Not Phil Jurkovic, unfortunately, though, right?
No, and I haven't gotten to Spencer Rattler, and I haven't gotten to, Cam Rising, who may come back.
Yeah, right.
To Utah again for his 7th year, and he may come out. So KJ Jefferson, Arkansas. This is unbelievably deep.
That is wild now that you list them off, especially when at the top of it you have guys that are considered to be like, I hate to say can't miss, but people are like that about Caleb Williams and Drake May. So
it's a really deep class. My question is, how many of these guys are Pro Bowlers? Because ultimately you want to, because those are the guys that make the Pro Bowlers can help you get to high-end playoff stuff. The good quality starters can help right the ship, but eventually you get to a point where you want to take that next step, and sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. It depends on what's built around them. I think your guy has a chance to be that, and Kenny Pickett has a chance to be that next level of, hey, we can win plenty of games, win divisions with Kenny Pickett, but can he make enough plays to separate himself like Burrow can? And I'm not sure that. Hey, I'm not sure that Justin Herbert's that guy. Everyone just gives Justin Herbert. Justin's a guy.
He's just such a specimen, and you've watched him dominate and consistently make difference-making plays
in the fourth quarter. Play better in the fourth.
It's weird, and right, he's another good one who's the flip of the opposite side of Kenny Pickett, who looks pedestrian for long stretches. Right. I just, the thing that in his last season at Pitt, suddenly early on in that season, his arm didn't suddenly become, a top 5 in the league arm, but suddenly he was making pro throws, and he continues to make them to George Pickens. I mean, when he's throwing those 20-yard back shoulder throws at the sidelines to Pickens, I mean, those are legit throws that I don't think every QB can put on the money and with the pace that he does. Right? Am I seeing that right?
Right. And that's something that's important. Being able to make certain throws really can separate you when it comes to being a high-end quarterback. But I also think that when you see Brock Purdy, Brock Purdy's, he said this too. I've had 49ers come at me for my scatter report and like, oh, you look at you didn't even watch any football. No, the problem was I did watch football, and that's why, and so did the NFL, which is why Brock Purdy was the last player picked. His tape stunk his junior and senior year. He was good as a sophomore, but he never recaptured that magic. And he's even said as much, that he did not have good tape. But what happens is, and that's a favorable offense. We talked about that. But he has the intangibles where He throws with some accuracy. He throws with some timing. He doesn't get rattled. Those intangible things, like all the physical elements that you talk about, that's what gets you drafted early. And frankly, that's what can turn you into, an elite prospect and talent. But Pat Mahomes has a good arm. He has a really plus arm, but it's not like he throws these rockets, these absolute stingers in there. Joe Burrow does not have a strong arm, but is an elite processor. I think the competitive nature and clutch play of Jalen Hurts and his character is something. There's another intangible that really elevates him. Lamar Jackson, physical specimen, we know. Josh Allen has all the physical tools, but Aaron Rodgers Aaron Rodgers is the most talented quarterback that I've ever seen of all the quarterbacks ever.
Do you know I said that? Talented. You know how I know I'm a QB whisperer? That's my chief piece of evidence, LZ. I said in 2010, I said that guy's going to go down in history as the greatest quarterback of all time. People laugh. Aaron Rodgers, like, what? He is? I'm like, look at that guy. He is.
They won't call him that because of Brady, but he is easily
the greatest physical specimen I've ever seen. Now Mahomes has jumped him for me based on deed, but
he had it mentally. He could escape. He could throw on the run. He has arm talent, like tight window throws.
There's never been anything like this. I mean, go back if you can dig them up. I don't know where they exist, but I've talked to Ryan Clark, Ike Taylor. I think Brian McFadden was out there with him. The secondary of the Steelers in Super Bowl 45. And I was like, in the weeks and months after the game, I said, correct me if I'm wrong. Your reaction to some of those heaters that got by you in the middle of the field, you thought you had a beat on the ball and we're going to pick it or at least knock it down. And it got by you more quickly than you anticipated. And they're like, yeah, I'd never seen anything like it. Like in real time, Aaron Rodgers a decade plus ago was throwing heaters that pro, Super Bowl participants were like, whoa, that was fast.
Yeah, but he didn't. But early on in his career at Green Bay, he didn't look great. Even when he had the time off, it kind of took him a little bit longer. And that's why you can't rush this. And that's with 2 years sitting on the bench. The only way that you get better is playing football. You can mentally get better, but at some point you have to get used to the speed of the game. But Aaron Rodgers was just like, I had him as the top prospect in the 2005 draft when I was doing my own draft stuff. And I had him ahead of Alex Smith. And I remember telling Charlie Cashley on the air about that. We had Charlie Cashley on our air on the radio show. I said, I found the next great quarterback. He said, who's that? And I said, maybe you'll even look at him if it doesn't get better with David Carr. Who's that? Aaron Rodgers. He didn't know who Aaron Rodgers was. And at that time, I'm thinking GMs have to know. But then, you get older, you realize, these guys are worried about their pro teams. They're not worried about all the college stuff as the season is going on. You got to worry about the college stuff. But Aaron Rodgers, talented. I thought his mental toughness at Cal, you could see it. But that mental toughness is what can define a quarterback or break them. Either
that's what I don't like about what I mean. Like, I don't want to, get up on Mount Pius about it. But hey, Caleb Williams, don't get seduced by a rando fan and start jawing with them. I right. love fire. I love fist pumping from your QB. I love all of that stuff. But it's a bad indication when you're doing the lion doesn't care about a sheep, my 12 and a halves. I don't care. I'm above you. Weird message with some rando. But by the way, you know how I know coaching matters is Aaron Rodgers at Cal. That was Jeff Tedford, right? Who had him holding the ball up high, like that weird Aaron Rodgers ball position when he would have it in the pocket. He would hold it up by his ear. Like that, like, don't do that, and then it changes the QB entirely. It's those little things.
But he had to bring it down to throw. He already had a quick release, so the idea that you're here so you can get rid of it quickly, he can do it from down below, and it allowed him.
It looks so dumb too. It just looked to your eye when you're watching him play at Cal. You're like, why does he hold the ball like that? That guy. Okay. Enough of all this. We'll put a pin in Ken Pickett for now, but a good chapter added there to his progress as a QB. Come on, 8. I love what I really, a nails QB is better to me than a guy who I'd rather John Elway, yes, the cynic rightly points out, you know why he had so many great, legendary, crazy comebacks is because he threw some terrible picks in the first 3 quarters. I'm not saying Kenny Pickett is John Elway, but the vibe is fun. Gunslingers are fun to root for, and maybe that's what we have here. All right. Last question, and I won't hold you long on this. Just quick reaction. Win, play, show. I was talking this with about this with Jean-Claude Van Dameshek on the ride yesterday. Kind of food, not a specific food, but an entire nationality of food, a genre of food, Italian food, barbecue, sushi, Chinese food. You know what kinds of foods are. Win, play, show. And here's the standard. The one you say win, you can have anytime you want for the rest of your life. The one you say place, you can have once every 2 weeks. The one you say is show, you can have once every 2 months. All the other foods, gone from your life forever.
Oh, okay. When is Vietnamese food?
When is Vietnamese every day of your life? This is a gigantic upset. This is Jets over Colts.
Yeah. So
this is Nova over Georgetown. Vietnamese over Italian?
I've got pork. I've got chicken. I've got beef. I've got sandwiches. I've got salads. I've got noodles. I've got egg rolls. I can go in a lot of different directions with Vietnamese.
Every day. Okay.
Yeah, I can go a lot of different directions.
Give me the place.
I couldn't do Italian would be too heavy every day.
Listen, I know.
What are you doing that's light with Italian? What are you doing?
It's going to be a problem for me, but I understand. I'm sort of pigeonholing myself. But better way to go than Italian when I have my pizza and I have my ravioli and my lasagna and my Parmesan and my Marsala. And I mean, that's enough. I don't need to keep going on. Yeah, those will satiate me for the rest of my life. I'll be happy, but so be it.
I just think I can.
Vietnamese, go sushi, man. That's what you get. You get the soups.
Sushi's two.
Sushi's two.
Sushi's two.
You're going to be very thin, LZ. That's for sure. You're keeping it nice and light. You're living a healthy lifestyle.
And
I like it for you.
And then 3, I think you go Italian. I could say Mexican food for me in my region is the same as Italian for you in your region. Well, you're typically your region. You're in LA now, right?
Oh yeah, 25 years. I'm almost as Angelino as I am Pittsburgh at this point.
You don't sound like it. You sound Pittsburgh still.
Thank you.
No, I mean, look, Italian is not as big here. We just don't have great Italian restaurants here, but it is everywhere else. I understand that, but you can do so much with Italian. I mean, there's so many directions you can go. I could do the same thing with Mexican. It's the same concept of it's heavier. Right. It's going to weigh you down. You're going to love the flavors. You're going to love the food. There is different types of food and dishes you can have inside there. It's just so heavy. I told people before, if I could have one dish for the rest of my life, I had to. I've said Vietnamese, so I'm just sticking with it here, Dave. I'm not going to overthink it.
Okay. Stick with it. It's a bold choice.
I'll say Italian. It's close between barbecue. Just gets too. There's limited. You're just limited. Barbecue's just so heavy.
Well, you're only going to have it once every 2 years. You might look forward to it when you're on day 600 of the Vietnamese egg roll. You might be like, oh my God, I can't wait for the beef ribs and some of those beans. Oh my God, I can't wait. Yeah. Listen, a bold choice, same as your show pick for best QB class was. I disagree with them, but I respect them, and I respect your opinions on QBs, on all things pigskin, food, and beyond. He's one of the best in the biz, and when I talk about the biz, I'm talking sports media, but also always remember the most important game of all, the game of life, and that's what LZ is talking about. This spaghetti, I know I say this a lot. This is how I end a lot of interviews. This is one of my favorite conversations we've had in some time. Dynamite stuff from, like I say, one of the best in the business. Track him down on social media. You see him on the NFL. He gets you right for the draft every springtime. Listen to him on the radio if you're lucky enough to in Houston, Texas, or beyond. It's the great Lance Zierlein. Thanks for the time, pal.
All right. Thanks, Shaq. I appreciate it.